human evolution and social development. Remember, there were 5 categories of history we learned the other day. And the first one is prehistory. Remind me, Sabrina, what's prehistory again?
It's the time before about 3000 BC, before writing was invented. So it's the time before written history.
Good. Yes. Okay. So chapter 1, human origins in Africa. Yes, prehistory dates back before the invention of writing, like Sabrina had said. Fossil evidence shows that the earliest humans originated in Africa. We're going to learn about that. So the search for human origins begins. It begins. So let's see how our timeline looks. We have prehistory at the top. It breaks down into the Stone Ages, or Paleolithic, which means Stone Age, and the metallurgies, okay, the resources such as copper, bronze, and Iron Age. So this, see the green at the bottom? That's our timeline. That's one of the timelines. What's the difference between Paleolithic and Neolithic? What's the difference? Anybody, just you can talk or just, yeah.
I believe that Paleolithic happens to deal with like, oh, okay, never mind, someone else already got it, never mind.
Okay, that's fine. You gave it a shot. Edwin, do you have your mic on? Tell us a little bit, Edwin. Oh, your mic doesn't work. Anybody else want to explain the difference between Paleo and Neolithic eras?
If I had to guess, oh, never mind.
Hold on. Let's let other. Yeah, Dina. Yeah.
I think Paleolithic was before Neolithic, like is part of prehistory. Neolithic is like the new Stone Age.
The new Stone Age. Good. Remember, when we think of Paleolithic, we think of nomadic hunter-gatherers. When we think of Neolithic, starting at around 10,000 BC, we think about the domestication of plants and animals, the settlement of people into villages, the beginning of larger communities, not going from one place to another, but finally settling down in one location. So the domestication of animals, okay, and settling down into cities, the beginning of cities and towns, 10,000 BC. Okay. So again, whatever I have here, you should be copying down, right? Or at least trying to copy some of these notes down. And if I go too fast, you can just say stop. You can say give me a few more minutes. That's fine. Tina, that's a good answer. Please, guys, don't be shy to answer any of my questions in the chat, or I just ask that you be respectful of other people's opinions, and yeah, don't be shy. Okay, let's take a look at some terms. Tina, can you read, please?
Sure, sir. So, origins of man. So we begin with primate. They're a complex social group. They communicated through touching, grooming, etc. They're ape/monkeys, and they walked on all 4 legs. And the next term is hominoids. They evolved 40 million years ago. They lived 15 to 5 million years ago. Humans and ape ancestry diverged, and they lived in trees and forests. And then the next term is homin, humans and other creatures that walk upright. And the
This is
next
a
term,
tough one. This is just say Australopithecus. Australopithecus.
Australopithecus, they're the first human-like creature to walk upright. And then we have bipedal, they walk on 2 feet, and then quadrupedal, they walk on 4 feet.
Good. So these are some early terms here that I want you to know. Terms like primate, okay? These complex social groups that start to emerge, okay? Apes, right? Walk on 4 legs, monkeys. Hominoids, that's an interesting term, okay? Going back 40 million years ago, okay? So we're still not dealing with humans yet. Then we have the first humans here, which we call hominoid. They're humans, okay, and other creatures that they begin to walk upright or bipedal, right? Walking on 2 feet, okay, that's a hominid. And then the first hominid is called, and this is a hard word, it's called Australopithecus. These are the first human-like, these are our ancestors, human-like creature to walk upright. Okay, so please copy some of these points down, these terms. Some of you might have already learned this before, and that's fine. Just a review, it's a refresh. But for most of you, I think this will be new. This is the origins of man. Okay, so we're going to come back to Australopithecus shortly. Let's take a look at some more terms. Oh, here's an interesting term, right? Paleontologist, that's one that we learned yesterday, right? A career that studies when life began on Earth. A hominid, a biped, again, we learned about that. And now let's focus on one Australopithecus called Lucy. Lucy was the first hominid, part ape, part human, proven to walk on 2 feet, roughly 3.5 million years ago. Okay, and discovered near Lucy is what we call the Laetoli, which is in Africa, Laetoli, Africa, called the Laetoli footprints, roughly the same time, and discovered near Lucy. So these were footprints that were preserved in volcanic ash. And we call the birthplace of humanity, this is important, the Great Rift Valley in Africa. And if we take a look at the first Australopithecus, take a look at him. Okay, that's what Lucy looked like, or her. That's Lucy. Okay. You could see roughly 4 million years ago, 4 to 5 million years ago, extinct, 35% brain size of modern humans, roughly 1.2 meters tall, and the very first bipedal hominid or living creature. So walking on 2, okay? First hominid that walks on just 2 feet, not all 4. Can everybody say that for me? Australopithecus. Can I hear you say it?
Australopithecus.
Australopithecus?
Australopithecus, yes. Thank you.
Australopithecus.
Okay, make sure you're copying this down. And next we have our good friend Homo habilis. He's our good friend Homo habilis here. Now, Homo habilis, we call him skillful man because of his use of stone tools. Okay. Now, also a bipedal primate, roughly 1.3 meters tall, 50% brain size, and lived roughly 2 million years ago. 2 million years ago. So we went from 4 to 2 million years ago. Homo habilis. And look at how they differ in size. Okay. Quite similar, right? Brain size a little bit bigger. But in terms of the physique, maybe slightly bigger than Lucy. But habilis means skillful or handyman.
Sir, how tall are both of them?
Okay, I gave you the measurements.
Oh,
now.
yes. Sorry. I completely bypassed that. Sorry.
Okay.
I must have been not paying attention then. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm trying to pay attention as best I can, but it's a lot to take in for me.
Okay. You just do your best, right? Do your
Right.
best. Okay. Can I move on?
Yeah.
So let's move on here. So then next, I just want to go through the two most significant adaptations are. So human evolution, therefore, is characterized by a number of developmental and behavioral changes. So number one, the big one is bipedalism 4 million years ago, and the increase in brain size, which we're going to see from each hominid going from the habilis to rectus to the Cro-Magnon. The increase, the brain size increases for each of these. So copy this down, please.
Sir,
Yes.
what do you mean by essential nutrients for increased brain size?
In terms of what they ate, right? So we're going to go through each, what they ate,
Oh, okay.
how their diet changed, right? Throughout this time period. I mean, we're talking millions of years here, right? Yeah. So the big difference here, 4 million, now we're at 2 million years. Bipedalism and brain size, that's the big difference. Let's take a look again at Homo habilis here, our skillful handyman.
Sir, I remember I read something about like how when they found fire, like their teeth got smaller, their jaws got smaller, so
Yeah,
like there was more place for their brain and stuff.
yeah, we're going to learn about that. Yep. So Jasmine, yeah, I will post this PowerPoint. It's not here yet, but I will post it, okay? But just make sure you copy the notes if you can.
Nathan, I think your mic is on.
Okay, so next we're going to move on to Homo erectus. Okay, now we're starting to get a little bit taller now. Okay, now this is roughly 1.2 to 250,000 years ago. Now these dates are important. You need to remember these dates, right? The order, the dates, size, brain size, all of these things. So here we have the upright man. So now we're starting to look similar to, modern humans now, right? We're much taller, 75% of brain size. So now the Homo erectus are going to be around for a long time. And in terms of geologic history, or right, not that long ago, right? 250,000 years ago. It's a big number, but so they were around roughly at this time, and they were more sophisticated. They began to master the environment, became much better at using tools, and the invention, and this is a big one, fire. That's really, really big. The invention of fire. Okay. Okay, then we have, which is very interesting. I'm sure you've heard the term Neanderthal. Okay, I'm sure you've heard Neanderthal before. Neanderthals are very interesting very interesting. So Neanderthals were roughly 250,000 years ago to 40,000. They became extinct around 40,000 years ago. Neanderthals are known to be, shorter but stockier, right? Physically larger than modern humans, very stocky, thicker build, known to be in colder climate in Northern Europe. Similar brain size to modern humans. They were discovered in 1856 in Neander Valley, Germany. That's why they get the name Neanderthal. They were found in Neander, Germany.
I'm wondering how tall they were.
So tall, they were roughly this, like I said, similar size to modern humans, maybe a little bit shorter, but much thicker. Okay.
Oh, just more bulky in terms of
Yes.
limbs and stuff, not necessarily height or anything.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have more notes coming for Neanderthals. These are just a couple notes here, but I will have more notes coming. So again, Homo neanderthals, roughly 250,000 to about 40,000. Okay, 40,000 years ago, that's when they became extinct. Right? Or that's still up for debate as to how they vanished, or what happened to them. That's still up for.
Sir, did they just like mate with other I don't know, species and
Y-
like they are combined or something.
Yes, yes. That again, that's a theory as well. We're gonna get there. Yes, they made it with other hominids around as well. So different theories, yeah, as to what happened with the Neanderthal. And then we have the Cro-Magnon, also known as the modern human, roughly about 100,000 years ago. Okay. This is the earliest of the Homo sapien. Okay. Roughly 100,000 years ago, and thrived between those years, 35 to 10,000. Innovations, you start to get calendar, paintings, complex language, and a religion. Neolithic revolution occurs at 10,000 years ago. And we're going to talk more about that. These are the Cro-Magnons, or the earliest of the Homo sapiens. Okay. This is just a brief overview, okay, of these hominids. Okay. And if we take a look at this really cool timeline here, kind of give you a better understanding. On the left, 4 to 5 million years ago, all the way up to the present. And you could see there are other species as well, right? Robustus and Boise, which we haven't talked about. But if you take a look at the main timeline, you could see the one that was around the longest actually was the Homo erectus, right? Very durable, around a long time.
So the ones above it, the Robustus, they just became extinct. They just died out.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's tough. Okay.
It's tough. Hey, history's a tough business. This is tough. So you see the Neanderthals at one point broke off as well from the Homo erectus. So you have modern humans and Neanderthals breaking off from the Homo erectus.
So is this saying there are still some Neanderthals? That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like.
There's like a lot of theories, and like some
Mhm.
people like speculate that the Neanderthals like crossbred with modern humans, and that some people still have Neanderthal blood. But like either they were like they went extinct, or they were like their DNA was so diluted that like they functionally went extinct. So there's like a lot of theories about that.
Oh, I
Yes,
see.
there are. Yes, I've read so much on the Neanderthals, and there are just too many theories to discuss. We just don't know exactly for sure, but yeah, this is very interesting stuff. And if you continue down here, okay, you can
Sure.
see. Yeah, hold on, Nicholas. You can see the circles are where Cro-Magnons have been found. The squares are where Homo habilis has been found, and the triangle you could see where Homo erectus.
I don't see many triangles. There's only about two that I see. One in Asia and one in Europe.
Yeah, but of course, you see the Cro-Magnons throughout the world, right? But you do see the Homo erectus did make it to Asia. Okay, you can see in Java as well down here. So they certainly
Oh, I
traveled,
see that.
right? The Homo erectus certainly traveled.
Hmm. But the Cro-Magnus seem to have gone all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So here's another look. Again, you can take a look at this on your own. I posted this package of the timeline of hominid evolution.
What happened before everything else?
All right, so let's continue. I'm just going to continue on this PowerPoint, which I haven't posted yet. But if we take a look at the difference between Homo erectus on the left and modern man on the right, okay. Similar, but the modern man is it has a bigger physique, bigger size. Okay, now if we look at the difference here between Neanderthal, here's some more notes, and the Cro-Magnon, and again, there's a lot of theories as to what happened to the Neanderthals. But Tina, can you continue reading, Tina, for me?
Sure, sir. So, the dawn of the modern humans or Homo sapiens. Many scientists believe Homo erectus developed into Homo sapiens, called wise men from 400,000 to 100,000 years ago. Different from Homo erectus by brain size and skull shape, Homo sapiens appeared in Africa around 400,000 years ago, and there are two types, the Neanderthals, which was 250 to 40,000 years ago, and the Cro-Magnon from 100,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So the modern humans. So Neanderthal still considered part of the Homo sapien and the modern human. Okay. Can you read a little bit more about Neanderthal? I'm just going to have Tina read through this, please.
Sure. So Neanderthals lived in Europe, Southwest Asia, and North Africa. They were discovered in 1856 in Neander Valley, Germany. They were buried dead with ornaments, wreaths, and goods. So these were religious rituals. They were thick-boned with a larger brain. They had clothing and stone tools. They were resourceful, so they built shelters to survive in harsh winter. And they had musical expression with bone flutes discovered.
I'm just going to go down here. You don't need to copy all of these, but I do want to come here to modern human migration. This is very interesting. If we take a look at these are this is in years, right? So you could see here in Africa, roughly 250,000 years ago, we start to get the development of modern humans. And then 100,000 years ago, we start to migrate out of Africa here into the Middle East. And then slowly 40,000 years ago into Europe. And then you can see 70,000 into Southeast Asia. Eventually made our way down to Australia. And then here you could see humans cross the Bering Strait. Because of certain times in geography, the seas were much lower here, so they were able to cross it. Okay, so 12,000 years ago, we start to get a crossing of humans into North America. And then by 9,000, we have humans in every continent, okay, or in South America. So this is roughly the timeline of human migration.
I was wondering why the map looked a little bit different than usual.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you asked this question. Good question. So let's take another look at that.
Sir, didn't they go migrate with boats and stuff?
To some islands, yeah. yeah. I mean, to some islands. But again, because you have to take into consideration this right here, which we call the Pleistocene era. For those of you that have me in geography, you should remember the Pleistocene era, which is the Great Ice Ages. Okay, so you see around 10,000 years ago, which is roughly the time that humans started to enter North America. Here, we have a warming of our temperature, and yeah, so 2 million to 10,000 years ago were the ice ages, and by 10,000 years ago, yeah, the ice.
Yeah, no, I meant like islands like Hawaii or like the Philippines or.
Mhm. Yeah, we're gonna get there. Yeah, so 4 more distinct episodes: expansion and melting of ice sheets, called the continental glaciers. Remember, Canada was also covered in ice. That's why it has its really unique shape, and thousands upon thousands of lakes, right? Because the glacier gouged the land and created these big kettle lakes.
Hmm.
Okay, good. So in terms of hominid migration and what happened, there are 2 different hypotheses or theories. Okay, let's start with theory number 1. Dina, can you read for me?
Sure. Multi-regional hypothesis number 1. Homo erectus spread throughout much of Eurasia around 1 million years ago, mated with neighboring hominid populations, exchanging inheritable traits. Therefore, humans evolved independently across the globe. This explains the difference between regions and races. Criticism for this theory suggests that different races are different people. No proof of Homo sapiens sapiens and Neanderthal hybrid.
So this theory, okay, again, states Homo erectus spread throughout much of Eurasia around roughly 1 million years ago and mated with other hominid populations. Okay, and this explains the differences in regions and traits and races, etc. Okay, this is called multi-regional hypothesis number 1. Then we have replacement hypothesis number 2, Dina, out of Africa.
Modern human migrated out of Africa to completely replace Neanderthal and Homo erectus. Human skeletal traits have evolved over 200,000 years. It is believed that modern humans had a single common origin in Africa.
Good. So this is called replacement hypothesis number 2. Humans out of Africa. Okay. Okay. So this is interesting stuff, right, guys? This is interesting. So I've taken you through a lot here. Okay, I'm just going to show you a video now. Okay, of archaeologists at work back in the 1800s. Just give me a second to find it.
Grammarly is a digital writing assistant that you can download.
Oh no, not this.
Where do we come from? For centuries, the greatest question in the history of man had no scientific answer. Then the first evidence of a human ancestor started a scientific revolution. This is the story of the quest to find the origins of the human race. It spanned a century and a half of obsessive searching and would make or break the careers of some of the greatest scientists in the field. For the lucky few, chance discoveries opened a window on the hidden world of our ancestors. From the tiniest fragments of the past, the full story was slowly pieced together. Spanning 300,000 generations, over 3 million years. It is the story of our progress from ape to man. The search for the origins of humanity is a story of bones and the tales they tell. The first chapter began here, 40,000 years in the future, at the entrance to this cave. With the discovery of this man. The year was 1856, and the cave lies in what is now the Neander Valley in Germany. Workmen were digging for limestone, a vital ingredient in the local chemical industry. It lay under a layer of rock and soil. The men were paid a few pence a day to remove the surface layer, and everything was thrown away. But then a spade hit something that didn't sound like a rock. The shape looked like the top of a skull, and thinking it might be a murder victim, they stopped work to show the foreman.
Ja. Hast du etwas gefunden? Ja. Was ist denn das?
It was interesting, but he'd seen this kind of thing before and was happy to send it the way of all the other bits of bone they'd found, to be smashed up with the rocks. Then something made him change his mind. He knew a local school teacher who might be interested to see it, and the skull got a reprieve. What he could never have imagined was that the skull was seeing the light of day for the first time in more than 40,000 years. In Western Europe, 400 centuries before Christ, the original owner of the skull was a living, breathing being, a hunter, a tribal leader, a father of children, and a member of the most successful species on the European continent at the time. Neanderthal man. "40,000 years later, a school teacher, Johann Fuhlrott, got the chance to see the skull for the first time.
Hallo meneer! Hallo! Hallo!
A keen amateur geologist and former anatomy student, Fuhlrott had no idea if he'd come on a wild goose chase.
Interessant.
The moment he saw the skull, he knew instinctively that this was something extraordinary. It looked fossilized, which would make it thousands of years old, and it was clearly not an animal. But neither was it from a normal modern human being.
This particular skull is the skull of Neanderthal, and it's big. This individual lived around 50,000 years ago. And by that time, Neanderthals had developed a brain that was as large and in some cases larger than the modern human brain. You notice that it's rather long and low. And it's almost as if you grab the front of a human face and pull it out. You also have this big protruding nose. And in fact, look how large that nose is. So they would have looked different from modern humans if you actually saw one with the flesh on it.
Over 300 Neanderthal remains have been found from Europe to the Middle East. They all tell the same story of a short, powerful physique, perfectly evolved for the world they lived in. A tough place. Europe was in the early stages of the last great ice age. Within a few centuries, this land was under a glacier half a mile thick.
At this time, the climate was fluctuating quite extremely. And we do know that they survived some of the major cold snaps, the major glacial advances.
The only way to support advanced life here was with a high-protein meat diet, and that meant learning to be a good hunter or starve.
What we do know from the skeletons, that Neanderthals were very robust, they were very strong, but they also had this huge brain.
The tools found with Neanderthal suggest they developed sophisticated stone technology. Their weapons were the tools of their survival and needed to be maintained. If a spear failed at the critical moment, the hunt would fail. Neanderthal males seem to have supported loose family groups of up to a dozen. This hunting trip had already taken 3 days and covered 10 miles with no sign of any prey. Then they found animal droppings. Neanderthal nasal cavities are unique among hominids, suggesting a highly evolved sense of smell, and they recognized the scent of red deer. Rubbing the droppings on their skin helped to disguise their approach, if they could catch up with the deer. They'd had to range further in recent months to find a kill. Red deer numbers had fallen rapidly, and they had no idea why. What they didn't know was that they had competition. Competition that would one day drive them to extinction. Victorian scientist Johan Fuhlrott held the evidence of an unknown ancient species.
Wo habt ihr das gefunden? Wir haben es dort gefunden. Und was war da sonst noch? Vielleicht noch ein Bein. Zeig mir bitte.
It's hard even to guess what the creature was without more evidence.
Nur noch diesen Bein.
And they hadn't got much.
Und wo ist der Rest? Wir haben sie weggeschmissen.
Weggeschmissen? Wenn ihr jetzt noch was findet, schmeißt bitte gar nichts weg. Haltet es für mich.
Ja, Mann.
Ich nehme jetzt erstmal diese 2 mit. Gut.
Danke.
Fuhlrott gave the bones to more qualified scientists. But even when more pieces emerged from the same cave, they completely failed to identify them. Opinions varied widely, from a barbarian who'd fought the Roman legions to a lost Russian Cossack, even the victim of some unknown congenital deformity. But a new idea began to take center stage. Fulrott himself suggested Neanderthal might be an early ancestor of modern man. To many Victorians, this seemed the most absurd notion of all. Then, in 1859, just 3 years after the bones were found, the notion suddenly caught on. Charles Darwin published his groundbreaking work, The Origin of Species. He suggested that all living things had descended from earlier, simpler forms by the process of evolution. And if it was true for every living thing on Earth, then that had to include us.
In 1859, Darwin publishes The Origin of Species. And a lot of people think that this book was paid attention to, but it wasn't. Most people couldn't care a jot about whether a fish evolved into an amphibian. No one cared. The big question, the question that everybody wanted to know is, where did we come from? And it's in the 1850s and 60s that science steps to the plate and says, I'm going to give you the answer. And boy, did they give us an answer.
If humans had evolved from a simpler form, the implication to the scientific mind was obvious and disturbing. Humans could only have descended from apes. The impact on the Victorian psyche was profound. Many believed the theory of evolution made them little more than animals.
Darwin stayed away from that question. He knew he was going to get into trouble. He writes to friends and says, I'm not going to talk about that. Far too controversial. And it's up to other people, new scientists, a younger generation of scientists, coming on in the 1850s and 60s, seeing an opening, seeing that they could make a career if they were to answer this question, where do humans come from?
Inspired by the Neanderthal bones, evolution became the hottest topic of the age. But it would stay little more than a theory without more evidence. Scientific attention turned to an ancestor that would link us to the apes. An ape man, a missing link. And they would go to the ends of the earth to find it. In the late 1800s, the world of science had become obsessed with the idea of a missing link between apes and man. And German scientist Johann Fulrott believed Neanderthal man was that link.
Neanderthal seems so promising when it's first presented. It seems like it's going to be the answer. But on closer inspection, it starts to fall apart. Most importantly, the key fossils just seem to be too much like humans. Neanderthal at best is a man with some ape qualities.
Traveling back in time, our Neanderthal stood just 3,000 generations behind us at around 40,000 years ago. To find a true missing link meant going further back in time to something more ape-like. The question was, how much ape and how much man would it be?
I think the idea of a missing link came from a very simple view of evolution. And it's not surprising it was simple because, of course, these ideas were in their infancy. But people had this idea of fixed types. There were humans and there were apes. And an evolutionary transition between those two types would somehow combine the features of both types. There was no real conception that evolution could operate over vast periods of time. And there could be complex mixtures of characteristics. So people were looking for something essentially that would be halfway between a living human and a living ape.
Okay. I hope you found that interesting. Okay.
I like that. That's nice.
Good. Okay. So I don't know if you saw, but I did post the homework for you. Okay. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm able to get to Neolithic era and the Great Leap Forward. So I think I'm gonna teach that tomorrow. I think it might be too much if I do both lessons today. What do you guys think? Are you ready to start your homework?
Yes,
You ready to get started?
definitely.
Do you mind if I go for a quick stretch break?
Yes. Just let me go through the homework first, guys, and then I'll give you time for break, and then you could come back and start the homework. So everybody just follow me. Just give me a couple minutes. If you go to classwork, if you go to homework, it's the third one, Human Evolution and Charles Darwin. So there's a few things you have to do. Okay, it's just pretty much going over what we've learned today. So you need to review the PowerPoint. That's this one. Okay. You have a reading on Charles Darwin and human evolution. Okay, and his book, The Origin of Human Species. Okay, it's just a package, short reading. Okay, and then you have the homework, which is one, complete the chart that I've posted here with the information you learned today. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then I've come up with 6 questions, which are reflect and analyze questions. So reflecting on what we've learned today,